growing up as a kid in the 2000s meant you had several fun TV shows to look forward to after coming home from kindergarten. Many 2000s kids had one show that was their absolute favorite as well. Whether it was Max and Rudy, or the Backyardigans, or even Yo Gabba Gabba, almost every kid had a favorite show. However, if you were anything like me as a kid, you chose to watch a little-known show by the name of Crashbox.
Uh-oh.
Now, you're probably thinking, Kairos, what the hell is Crashbox? Well, Crashbox was an educational show that ran from 1999 to 2000. It took place inside of this computer run by stop-motion robots, whose entire point was to create small, green game cubes, which were actually the show's various segments. You heard that right, this show was divided into 18 different segments, with each episode featuring 7 or 8. Every segment covered some different educational topic. For example, Psychomath featured an eccentric professor made of school supplies named Professor Rocket, who would give you math equations using pictures, so you would have to use the number the pictures represented to solve the equation. Or Eddie Bull, which would feature the titular character being eaten by an animal in his zoo. He would give you clues as to what animal ate him, and you would have to piece together what the animal was. I remember being enraptured by this show as a kid. The segments were fun, the stop motion was extremely charming, and the characters had so much spunk to them, but I'll get to them in a little bit. I used to come home every day from kindergarten, get a snack, plop down on the couch with my mom, and test my knowledge in every segment. It felt like the only show that could capture every bit of attention from my ADHD-riddled brain. Okay, so now you're probably wondering, what made this show so special? It was just some educational show from the 2000s. In my opinion, what easily made this show stand out to 5-year-old me was the characters. Even now, in 2026, I love these characters with a burning passion. As mentioned before, every character is super unique and full of life. Although I mentioned earlier that the show's in stop motion, some characters actually appear as animatics, puppets, live action, or they're 2D animated. To me, this adds a fun multimedia dimension to the show that you don't see super often nowadays. They all add so much to their segments in a way that's memorable. So, why not go through and talk about some of my favorites? Easily, my favorite character has to be Jumpin' Johnny Jumble, a microphone with bright blue hair and cool sunglasses who worked as a radio host at KBOX. His segment is called Radio Scramble, and consisted of playing songs to the viewer that had a jumbled title, and you would unscramble it based on context clues of the song. Occasionally, Johnny would actually switch personalities and don either a wig or a hat to cover weather or sports news respectively. I think what gives him so much life is his voice acting. His voice was done by the lovely Peter Lurry, who you may know as Prison Break in Skylanders or Leatherhead in the 2012 TMNT show. It's got that jazzy pizzazz to it that's super fun and fitting for his design and occupation. He also usually has a weird name for the viewers, which I've always been a fan of.
Hey, you happening squirrels and squirrelettes.
Funnily enough, it's also sometimes implied that he breaks into the studio for his segment rather than working there.
Well, before they find I'm in here and throw me out, this is Sayonara from Jumpin' Johnny Bombshell. That's Jumbo.
I would love to know what he gets up to outside of his segment, just because his appearance can only suggest that he's really a radio show host. Also, in my humble opinion, he's really hot. Next, I want to talk about Dora Smarmy, the host of the segment Distraction News, who's voiced by Mari Weiss. Her character design stands out from the other characters as she's entirely made from construction paper. Her hair is all curled loops of orange and yellow paper, and her mouth is made to resemble a ventriloquist dummy. Distraction News essentially had you listening to Dora presenting on a topic, while all kinds of hijinks ensues on screen to try and distract you. At the end, she asks you a few questions to see how much you've paid attention. I've always loved her character design, since the whole paper puppet concept was super unique to me as a kid. Unfortunately though, you probably know her from that whole Daily Capper thing, but we don't talk about that. This is Dora Smarmy from Crashbox. My Dora Smarmy would never. Now, let's talk about Lens McCracken, Photo Snoop, and voiced by Mr. S. Scott Bullock. You may recognize him as Eddie from Back at the Barnyard.
You bring the stuff? It's right here, huh?
Show it.
It's
Show it.
It's right here.
Lenz is the titular character of his segment, yet he's not honestly shown that much. He's a comic book styled man in a hat and trench coat that faces away from the viewer at all times. During his segment, he'd show 3 zoomed in photos he took from a crime scene, and you have to figure out what the photos are. At the end, he'd use a machine called the Solutionator to reveal what the zoomed out images are, and give you his ridiculous retelling of what happened at the crime scene. And lastly, I want to talk about Captain Bones, the host of his segment with the same name, who also happens to be voiced by F. Scott Bullock. He's a cranky pirate skeleton who lives on a washed-up shipwreck and spends his time doing math puzzles with his bones so he doesn't go
Stark-Raven mod.
He'll make a math equation that's incorrect, and you usually have to make it correct by moving 1 or 2 of his bones. The entire time, he's ranting about how dumb the viewer is and calling them names, which is just extremely amusing.
Got the idea now? You river dancing, Barney watching sleeper with the lights on?
And honestly, some of his puzzles are a pain in the ass sometimes, especially for a kid's show. Even rewatching the show now, I can't get the answer sometimes. These segments really try to get you to think, which I've always loved. I want to circle back to the show's art style, which is arguably equally, if not more memorable than the characters themselves, depending on who you ask that have seen the show. I know I brought it up to show how charming the characters were, but you may have noticed from the background footage or heard online that these characters are kind of gross looking. Some of the first things you'll see online when looking up Crashbox are people saying that the art style is gross or unnerving, saying that it scared them as kids. But to that I say, yeah, some of them are weird and kind of creepy. However, there's just too much charm in that. Except for, like, the revolting slob. I mean, he's pretty ugly. I'd argue that the grungy sort of art style works on the little worker robots more than the characters in the game segments. Something about that dingy, scrappy, kind of rusty look to all the robots adds a ton of charm. It makes them look like they were all made of scrap metal and loose parts from some workshop floor. In fact, a lot of this scrap metal vibe bleeds into the computer world overall. Including the outside of the computer, the environments are, again, made of random bits of metal all meshed together to form this assembly line of game cartridges. Various screens or pedals or rails can be seen all around the intro and the in-between sequences of the show. It's also implied that the food in this universe is metal as well, as shown in the brief power-out intermission during each episode, where the main robot eats donuts made of actual nuts that are frosted. I think what's fun as well is that this style doesn't carry into every single segment, but you can spot bits of the same aesthetic in segments like 10 seconds. The changes around in art style are super refreshing, and is likely a lot of what kept my attention back in the day. If you're anything like me, you may be wondering what happened to the show and its puppets. Well, the show itself ended after 2 seasons, but still airs on reruns on HBO today. Then there's the puppets. A lot of the show was stop motion, so where are these puppets now? Well, after researching, I sadly learned that many of the show's puppets were scrapped after the show and its spin-offs. This is actually heartbreaking news, as I would have loved to see Johnny Jumble and the little boss robot today, wherever they'd be. Whoa, spin-offs? You didn't say anything about that before. And I actually have a good reason. The spin-off shows, Smart Mouth and Who Knew, are both almost entirely lost media. With that being said, to everyone who sees this, I'd like to make a proposal. You see, there is tons of Crashbox media that have been lost to time. To my knowledge, this includes a pilot, many of the spin-off episodes, a behind the scenes, a bumper, and of course, what remains of the puppets, if anything at all. I'm personally most invested in the puppets and the bumper, simply because we actually have 2 screenshots of the latter. It features Captain Bob from the Think Tank segment taking a picture of many of the other characters who stand bunched together. If anyone knows how to go about finding lost media watches this, I heavily encourage looking into this. I'm extremely interested in finding them, so if this video gave anybody an interest in Crashbox enough to try and find it, that would be incredible. I hope that maybe I've convinced you to check out the show, since, as I said, it's still fun as an adult. Plus, many of the episodes can actually be found right here on YouTube, which is how I've been watching them. Anyways, that's all I have for today. I've been Hot Young Blue Stars, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.